Hi there, folks. Welcome to the program. This, of course, is Stinchfield, the podcast. We have a very important podcast to talk about today. Twitter has now officially moved to Texas. This is big because old Twitter had protection in California. You know, law enforcement in California, the Attorney General's office in California was going to protect Twitter at all costs, especially when it was under old leadership, before Elon Musk comes in and buys it. So now that Twitter is in Texas, what can be done? What can be done to investigate the old Twitter, to expose and uncover all of the shenanigans that went on during the election cycle, the censorship of conservatives? You want to talk about the censorship at every social media company? There's some indications that that censorship, the central brain hub of it all, was coming out of Twitter. We could expose it all now because the Attorney General in the state of Texas, Ken Paxton, will have widespread authority to subpoena whatever he wants from Twitter. Now, my assumption is this could give Elon Musk some cover when it comes to what he will give up to Texas, because if he's subpoenaed, he doesn't have a choice. Maybe if he's trying to not make his employees too upset about all of this, it gives Elon Musk cover, and Attorney General Ken Paxton can then go to town investigating old Twitter. Who was in charge of all of this? Remember that name, James Baker? We're going to talk about him a little bit. So one of my very good friends, Ivan Raiklin, who's a former Green Beret, Defense Intelligence Agency guy, longtime confidant of General Michael Flynn, is going to join us today to talk about this play now in Texas and Twitter being in Texas and just how important all of that really is. But before I bring on our guest, I just want to tell you about Consumer Advocates USA Now. This is a buying group that is committed to America, that is committed to gathering patriots to buy from an American company that produces American products that's been around for decades. So if you want to say no to Chinese products, if you want to say no to the big box stores that are pushing mom and pops out of business, say yes to causanow.com/grant. That's causanow.com/grant. Go in there, fill out the form. Someone will get right back with you. But this, folks, is about a parallel economy, and it's about destroying the Chinese market of goods coming over and into our houses. Now, the other great part of this is all of these household products, from dish soap and Windex style products to cleaning solutions, laundry detergent, anything you can use for your house, they're going to have it. Non-toxic, which is really great. causanow.com/grant, causanow.com/grant. Become a member. I promise you won't regret it. I'm a member, and I'm very happy with these products. I really, really am. All right, let's get the show started.
Uncensored and unapologetic. This is Stinchfield. Here's your host, Grant Stinchfield.
Well, folks, as promised, Ivan Raiklin is with us. Lieutenant Colonel, retired, Green Beret, was with the Defense Intelligence Agency. He's a lawyer and, of course, a longtime confidant of General Flynn, and a friend of mine over the years now. And he is right in the thick of things when it comes to winning the battle against the left and pushing against the woke agenda, the censorship of conservatives, and, of course, trying to win elections, too, for Republicans. So with that, Ivan Raiklin, it's great to see you and great to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me back, Grant. Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, you mentioned going after the censorship stuff. I mean, yesterday, Twitter just closed their Twitter 1.0 headquarters in San Francisco. I don't know if you wanted to go into that, but I think I jumped the gun there.
No, that's exactly why I brought you on the program, because you and I were talking about Twitter closing San Francisco headquarters, moving to Austin, Texas. This opens up a whole opportunity for us. Why don't you explain your thoughts on this and what you think needs to happen now in Texas?
This is massively astronomical. So remember the political dynamics of California for a company such as Twitter and the CEO, Elon Musk. In California, he's under the thumb of Gavin Newsom, under the thumb of Nancy Pelosi. of the thumb of the entire ecosystem of not only California, but San Francisco. Recall that it was Kamala Harris that was the DA in San Francisco and the Attorney General. And didn't some of her employees also work at Twitter 1.0? Absolutely. The other component here that people need to understand is that the Deputy General Counsel of Twitter 1.0 from 2018 to 2022, his previous job before that was the General Counsel of the FBI from 2014 to 2018, at a time when the FBI under his watch was authorized to illegally spy on Carter Page through a falsified, doctored FISA warrant and defrauding the FISA court, to spy on General Flynn, to spy on the Trump campaign illegally, and then perpetuate it by covering it up with the Mueller investigation. So with that background of Jim Baker, and then later he becomes a Twitter Deputy General Counsel, I suspect that now Elon Musk, with his move from California to Texas, is probably now in a position to release what I coin as the mother of all Twitter files. So the ones that he's released so far are kind of only microscopic in their impact. Now he has the political top cover, if you will, of Attorney General Ken Paxton, of State Senator Brian Hughes, who chairs the committee that has the ability to kind of look into any nefarious activity of tech companies in Texas and whether or not they violated Texas citizens' First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, and any other Texas statute or constitutional provision of the Texas Constitution. This is massive.
All right. When you say gives him political cover, do you think that Elon Musk can just release this on his own just because he's in Texas, or is it going to take Paxton or Hughes to start subpoenaing many of these files and information they think that may be out there?
All of the above and a couple of other vectors. Let me explain how that sounds. So if I were recommending everybody that's listening in or could listen in that's a human being, particularly those in Texas, number one, Elon Musk needs to deploy his trusted team to look at every communication that Jim Baker conducted, not only his internal Slack channel communications or his emails or his direct messages on Twitter, but also every document that he signed and every device that was issued by the company Twitter to Jim Baker, meaning his tablet, his cell phone, his computer. And that's only line of effort number one.
Ivan, you don't think, don't you think Elon would have already done that just out of sheer curiosity?
I think the political risk would have been too great. I may be incorrect in that analysis, but I really do think that. One, the political risk, and two, the understanding of the rotten corruption wasn't quite yet there at this microscopic layer. So I've been, as an independent outsider, have been looking into this because I had a first or second row seat to this weaponization and corruption as it applies to General Flynn going back 10 years. And so I'm one of the few people, along with General Flynn and a few others, that have the ability to kind of like lay out the story, if you will, or storyboard it to then tie everything back to Jim Baker, because he's this kind of a central figure, both East Coast and West Coast, as it applies to not only the entire illegal spying operation, but the entire censorship industrial complex that Mark Zuckerberg just admitted to, meaning three layers. Number one, what I call the genocide participation by providing cover for the COVID information. Number two, providing cover for the Biden criminal syndicate laptop through censorship. And number three, in the case of Mark Zuckerberg, bribing upwards of $400 million to local jurisdictions to steal the 2020 election. He admitted to this. Now, it begs the question, are the same people that pressured Mark Zuckerberg into censoring this content the same individuals that did the same with Twitter? And are those names Brian Auten from FBI, Laura Demlow from FBI at headquarters at the Foreign Influence Task Force at the time? And are the names at the San Francisco field office, Joe Pientka III and Elvis Chan, part of that group? The only person that's going to know all of that is Jim Baker, because he would have then coordinated it on behalf of all of big tech as an embed within Twitter 1.0. And because I think, second and third order effects of looking at his content is going to be so, I argue, astronomical, I think Elon needed the safe haven of Texas to be able to now take the next bold step. And then what he can't release publicly due to legal constraints, got it, there's going to be some legal constraints on it, then that's where the Senate state senator Brian Hughes can step in and really pierce the veil of secrecy, particularly as it applies to the communications of Jim Baker. And then beyond that, as it applies to criminal and the protection of the civil rights of Texas residents that were part of the victims of the censorship industrial complex under Jim Baker's reign at Twitter, that's where the Attorney General, Ken Paxton, can come into play. And lastly, I'll say this. Every single Texan, whether it's you, Grant, was censored on Twitter, or whether it's Glenn Beck, or whether it's Dinesh D'Souza, Roseanne Boylan, Alex Jones, Joe Rogan, for that matter, every single Texan that's a content creator particularly, if you need to file I think you're now in a position, in a much stronger position, to file a claim against Twitter, particularly those former employees at Twitter, to then essentially have a civil cause of action against them, especially as it applies to any manipulation related to COVID information that resulted in a death of a family member. Thus, it would be a wrongful death claim, or whether it was an injury to a family member or yourself, that will then result in a claim of tort. And I don't know a specific Texas statute, but that's the general conceptual framework upon which the legal risk is unlimited against former Twitter employees.
All right, so here's the thing, when I'm looking at this from a real-world perspective, I know I was in the Twitter files. The guys who were investigating, those independent journalists that Elon gave so much access to, had reached out to me and said, Grant, you came up in here. Did you see a fallback in reach of your Twitter when this date here, when we saw that you were mentioned and some of these things? So I know that I was part of this. The question that becomes is, I don't want to sue Elon Musk. Twitter did me great damage. Facebook has done me great damage. YouTube has done me great damage. But I don't want to sue Elon Musk now. Would I be then hurting him financially if we were all started to sue Twitter?
No, so let me kind of clarify that point. I get your point, because he's advocating for free speech, and we don't want to derail that whatsoever. I think the claim here, and again, without knowing specifics of I'm not a Texas attorney, I'm in New York. So the conversation needs to be had. What can we do to hold accountable those former Twitter employees? And I think the very first step is to expose that they were involved in the biggest con job on America through the censorship regime. And then we can backdoor that in proving every single conspiracy from 2016 forward, every single cover up from there, to include an illegally conducted 2020 election. Because you got to remember, the general counsel, and specifically the deputy general counsel at Twitter, the one person at Twitter at the C-suite level that had an intricate understanding of our governmental system, because he was in it for so long, he had to have been the conduit. And so I think through that, we can create some very novel legal theories, and even just regular precedents, legal theories, to go after him as an individual. So
you think James Baker, this Jim Baker, was the control center of all of it, was the mastermind of all of it? Everything was going through him. You know what? I'm going to ask you that question. We'll talk about that in 1 second. I just want to tell everybody about some good friends of mine. The name of the company is NFN8, and NFN8 is a company called Get21Now.com. That's their website anyway. NFN8 is the name of the company. But folks, if you know that you can make money in Bitcoin, but you hate the idea of the wild swings like I did, I ended up losing money. But nobody lost money in Bitcoin that bought and hold except for old Stinchfield. But here's where I'm making money now. It is the mining. So I have invested with NFN8, Get21Now.com. Here's what they have promised me. 21% interest with my deal, and you can get this deal too. I've got it arranged for you. 21% interest, annualized, paid monthly. I get a check direct deposited every single month, and it's working. They've lived up to all their promises to me, and here's the secret. It's the mining. They have huge warehouses, industrial size warehouses. They buy the electricity super cheap, and they sell the Bitcoin as they mine it. And you get paid out up to 21% annualized every single month. So I don't have payroll to worry about. I don't have employees. I don't have rent. 21% of my money, I was lucky to make that when I was investing in all of these other businesses. So not the headache of watching the Bitcoin market, not picking my spots in and out. Literally locked in at 21% annualized interest. And it's been a fabulous, fabulous program for me. They've been around a long time, too. They're almost a decade in business now. And so, again, They've lived up to all their promises. I urge you to talk to them. Get21now.com. Get21now.com. And they'll get back in touch with you. Reach out to them and see what they have to say. I promise you, you're not going to be disappointed. All right, I want to bring in now Lieutenant Colonel retired Ivan Raiklin. Again, he's Green Beret, Defense Intelligence Agency. Works with General Flynn. Has been on the forefront. Remember when we were going through the election and the electors and the plan that John Eastman had spelled out for President Trump. President Trump retweeted Raiklin. This guy's on it. And so, I mean it, Colonel. It's great having you on here. You were telling me about Jim Baker. He was the general counsel at Twitter, so involved in government at all levels, was involved inside the FBI. Why
general
do you
counsel at FBI from 14 to 18, and then from 2018 to 2022, the deputy general counsel at Twitter.
All right, so that's the heart of all of it.
Coastal. He is the one person that is at the epicenter that would know the entire activities that were conducted as it relates to the censorship industrial complex. Facebook didn't have such a high-ranking individual from former government that was involved institutionally with the censorship regime. Because with the original Twitter files, what we saw was it was FBI, it was CISA, it was ODNI, Office of Director of National Intelligence, that were the coordinating authorities that did the censorship. The one person on the left coast within any of the institutions known as Google, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of them, the senior ranking official that knew the system that coordinated on behalf, I have high level of confidence of this because of his background, is Jim Baker. And then by extension, he had to have been the one to coordinate this. And how did he do it? Yesterday, I was in San Francisco. Not only did I do play taps as we buried Twitter 1.0 in downtown San Francisco, I walked through with a video live and then posted it up. How long it takes to walk from Twitter headquarters to the FBI field office in San Francisco. It is 4 blocks, meaning if Jim Baker wanted to go to meet with his guy at FBI field office, Joe Pientka III, they would have to walk 2 blocks each to go to a mid-level coffee shop to have a conversation so that it would be off the books, right, on how they would run the censorship op. One key thing that people need to know about the second person that I just introduced, which is Joseph Pientka III, who's still at that San Francisco field office. Before he went to San Francisco in 2018, same year that Jim Baker did, he was also part of the Crossfire Hurricane operation to illegally spy on General Flynn and by extension the Trump campaign. Those 2 individuals are maximally the ones that know the entire operation of Pete Strzok, the lying, the Lisa Pages, the Kevin Kleinsmith, the Brian Ottens, the Laura Demlos, the Andy McCabe's, the Jim Comeys, and all the way up the leadership chain into the White House. Those 2 individuals, if we can get all of their communications, hook, line, and sinker, you and I become conspiracy oracles overnight instead of conspiracy theorists, because the communications will prove it. And why Jim Baker is instrumental is because he also was an employee of big tech. And that means we can then not only look at his direct messages or his internal Slack channel deliberations or emails, but the devices that were issued to him, whether he communicated on Signal with Joe Pientka or any other messaging app such as Threema, encrypted messaging app, to prove all of it.
Would they not, they'd have to be smart enough to delete all those apps off the phones before they turned them back into Twitter if they had phones that were provided to them from Twitter.
He was fired and walked out completely. One question. So I had a 5-hour meeting about a month ago at this time with Matt Taibbi, where I kind of laid out what I call the deep state target list by category of treasonous activity. One of them being obviously the censorship regime, Crossfire Hurricane, where this guy Jim Baker is ensnared in both of those categories. And when Matt Taibbi asked me towards the end of our meeting, he said, like, okay, there's a lot here. You have a big list. There's about 600 people. Who should we start with? And I said, Jim Baker will be the key to unravel and expose the rest of the deep state co-conspirators, either directly or indirectly. And so, I mean, I can't stress that name enough. And now that Twitter is in Texas, it's not politically feasible. It's politically mandatory because Elon Musk endorsed President Trump. So for him not to do this is literally
All right.
Elon Musk saying, you know what, I'm committing suicide as a
So
business, and maybe even more so.
Attorney General Ken Paxton has become a friend of mine. I was just with him the other night, Dallas County GOP event with John Rich and Cowboy Troy, and it was a great night, by the way. But so I know him, and I have called him not just because he's my friend, but I think he is the greatest attorney general that we have in the United States of America today.
Absolutely.
If he was watching this, what would you tell him the game plan should be? What would you want the attorney general first thing to do, and lay it out for me in steps of what his office could do?
So 2 lines of effort that his office is currently working on that everybody sees publicly is that he's gone after, actually 3. He just settled with Facebook to the tune of $1 billion plus on the censorship regime. Number 2, he's going after Big Pharma. And number 3, he's going after to make sure that our elections are free, fair, safe, and secure and transparent. If he wants to continue the investigation in through another vector of evidence to basically prove to Texans that he's doing everything he can to be able to do those, to make sure that Texas's First Amendment rights are intact. Big Pharma is not coercing medical experimentations on them. He must pierce the veil of secrecy on Twitter, because here's another component that we didn't discuss yet. Twitter's official fact checkers of Twitter 1.0 was contracted out to Reuters. The CEO of Reuters at the time, and is still, at the time he's the CEO, he was also the board member of Pfizer, meaning the very person on the board of Pfizer is telling himself through his employees that Twitter can only talk about that Pfizer's products are safe and secure and the most magnificent elixir ever in the history of humanity. And anybody that's trying to communicate the unsafe indicators of those products, they are to be censored and suspended. That is medical fraud. So on one layer, AG Paxton can then, under the umbrella of already litigation and investigations that he's conducting, can loop in all of Twitter holdings related to, we'll call that in short, hashtag Fauci files, and everything related to COVID con and the censorship scheme that Mark Zuckerberg admitted to. Let's now look into it now that Twitter is in Texas. And then number 2, as it applies to the elections, let's take a look and see every single request that was made by, you name the person in Georgia that Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton sued. Remember the case? Texas versus Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania? He can go ahead and pull off the shelf that lawsuit that was denied for standing by the Supreme Court, and now with a new trove of evidence say, hey, we just looked at Twitter and now we see that Georgia, you name the person, whether it's Brad Raffensperger or Brian Kemp or Jordy Fuchs or any governmental actor that communicated with Twitter to censor and suspend and cover up any proof of an illegally conducted election in Georgia, Pennsylvania, whether it's Bookvar in Pennsylvania, the Secretary of State at the time, or whether it's Jocelyn Benson, or whether it's the Wisconsin Election Commission in Wisconsin. If there were communications through that portal to censor any information of fraud, then guess what? We now, meaning Texas Ken Paxton, now has much more evidence to prove his lawsuit was ripe, and it is even more ripe today. And he could refile it and essentially render the 2020 election in at least those 4 states completely illegitimate through the holdings of Twitter.
All right, so that's amazing. Then you
This
mentioned
is massive.
It's massive.
This is huge. I don't know how to explain this without using expletives, how big this is.
Well, I like the term the mother of all Twitter files, which is what it could be. And it could. Do you think the information could change the direction? I already think that President Trump's in a very good direction towards November. I still worry about the cheating. I still worry about the Democrats do everything they can to not let this man win, which I think President Trump is correct. We said we got to swamp the vote. But could this information help the future election of November 2024?
Absolutely. And that was kind of the whole plan as part of this. 2 things I'll mention here. So on the presidential and vice presidential electoral allocation, what this does, it educates the court of public opinion that everyone will see that our election system is completely wrought with fraud and is illegitimate. And everyone is going to demand a solution. I propose that the solution for this is going to be to lean on state legislatures, and at a minimum, the states that have majority Republican legislatures, for them to go ahead and hold a vote in their joint session on November 5th to allocate their presidential and vice presidential electors. If we add all those things up, Republican state legislatures control 274 electoral votes. Ergo, the Republican nominee, if everyone votes by political party, it becomes the de facto recipient of the majority of the electors that are currently of the 538. It guarantees the Republican nominee wins the presidency under Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2, because that's how we ran elections initially, through state legislative allocation. All they need to do is redo that in today's election. Maybe they can say, you know what, we're going to do it this year, but next time we're going to clean our election system. Elon's going to help. We're going to make it free, fair, transparent, and and clear in the next election cycle for president. And that's how we fix the presidential election. As it applies to the federal congressional elections, that's where I think this court of public opinion information will help to inform early voters as early as Monday in Pennsylvania and other states that have majority Democrat legislative bodies, where they're not going to want to do it this way. They're going to want to continue to do the mail-in ballots, the drop boxes. But at a minimum, this information allows us an opportunity to still potentially win in those states, even if there is fraud.
So let me just oversimplify this.
Does that make sense?
Let me oversimplify it, and you correct me if I'm wrong. The states are allowed under the Constitution to decide how they want to delegate their electors. Okay, we know that that's an absolute fact. So
Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2.
It used to go through the legislative body. Now, every state could decide to do it a different way. They could all decide to do it, as you said, and because when it comes to state legislators, Republicans control the majority of them, which would give us to be over the top when it comes to the electoral count. Now, here's the only monkey wrench in all of this. We have a lot of loser Republicans out there. We got a lot of rhino Republicans. They couldn't even end mail-in ballots. They can't even end getting going through signatures. You look at what happened in Georgia and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, and Arizona still isn't even where we need to be on all of this stuff. So to get them to do that sounds easy, but I don't think you're going to be able to get these rhinos on board.
Here's my thought through that. Here's my response to that. As we look into Twitter and prove that many of these rhinos were complicit, their constituents are going to be so furious that I think that demand signal for this style of voting to take place is going to go through the roof. I mean, we're talking beyond 212 degrees,
well,
right?
Look.
And then number two, if there's imagine what happens to the Republican state rep or state senator when they're live streamed on X, C-SPAN, Rumble, and Truth, how they vote to allocate that state's electors. Can you imagine a Republican with that level of transparency voting for not the Republican nominee, what their constituents will do to them?
Yeah.
I suspect it will be way more than what we did to Liz Cheney or Adam Kinzinger.
Look, that
by an order of magnitude of $1 trillion.
That is the court of public opinion. You've got clock ticking now, though we're just under 2 months. I don't want to give anyone false hope that it could happen, but it's a great idea. We got to be thinking out of the box on things like this.
But I mean, now Twitter has a billion monthly active users almost.
Yeah.
So Elon Musk, I think the biggest players in resolving the 2024 election and the 2020 are Elon Musk, Ken Paxton, and Brian Hughes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So if we can get them to synchronize these efforts and get our Texas influencers to push this demand signal, I think we're in pretty exciting times here.
All right,
because
so
guess what happens when we run the election this way? That means no illegal votings. That means no bad voter rolls are used.
Yeah.
That means no drop boxes are used. No mail-in ballots are used. Nothing. It goes solely, strictly how the founders intended. Our state legislatures vote on the allocation of that state's units of sovereignty known as the electors.
So what we need to do is we need to get you in touch with Brian Hughes and Attorney General Ken Paxton, State Senator Brian Hughes and Attorney General Ken Paxton, the state of Texas. This is fascinating stuff. I know you're going to be with me tonight on the Real America's Voice show. We're going to break it down for that audience as well. So we'll continue to push this out to the masses, and I know you are too. And, you know, you've been a tremendous fighter through all of this. I truly believe Ivan Raiklin. You're a true American hero. God bless you for your service to this country as a former Green Beret and Lieutenant Colonel. It is a pleasure having you on today. Thank you.
Thanks for the platform, Grant.
Absolutely. Absolutely, buddy. And folks, we will continue to stick on this story again on the Real America's Voice show later on today. Make sure you tune into that at 7 p.m. Eastern time. All right, so I want to tell you about my friends over at Patriot Mobile. I have a Patriot Mobile phone. I am so happy with it. 972-PATRIOT is the number to get in touch with them. It's so easy to make the switch. I was with a huge group of people. There were so many Patriot Mobile users at the Dallas County Republican Party function with John Rich that Patriot Mobile was a sponsor of. I was so impressed. Many of you are making the switch. Get away from the woke cell phone companies. Push back against them. And I would say this. Where you spend your money says a lot about where you want this country to go, okay? Why would you be funding the big cell phone companies that engage in diversity, equity, and inclusion stuff, that fund places like Planned Parenthood, that will wage war on free speech, that will donate money to all of these causes, including candidates, by the way, that don't believe in the things we believe in, like the Constitution, like God, like moving our country in the right direction. Patriot Mobile does believe in all of those things, which is why you should be with them. They have a performance guarantee like none other. Switching is super easy. Just go to patriotmobile.com/Grant, patriotmobile.com/Grant. It is super easy. And here's what you do. Use the promo code GRANT for free activation. You can get 2 lines on one phone, 2 different networks, so you'll always have a network service, whether it's AT&T or Verizon or T-Mobile, that works in the town that you're in, which is great. And I promise you, you're going to love Patriot Mobile. PatriotMobile.com/Grant, 972-PATRIOT, 972-PATRIOT. Use that promo code GRANT and tell them Grant Stinchfield sent you. All right, I want to go through now, folks, one of Kamala Harris's interviews that she recently did. She finally sat down with a local reporter. Okay? Amazing. And what we got is a campaign commercial for Donald Trump. In fact, he tweeted out that exact philosophy, that this interview, 11 minutes long, serves a campaign commercial. She did what I thought she was going to do during the debate. Word salad. Things that don't make sense. More platitudes. She did that in the debate, that's for sure. Short on details. In fact, she's asked multiple times about details to how are you going to get the economy back on track, and she can't answer. So I thought we would go through this interview in its entirety and comment along the way. So let's roll it.
Madam Vice President, pleasure to meet you. Thanks for your time today. Our audience appreciates your time as well.
Of course.
As you know, we're sitting here in a state and arguably in front of an audience that 54 days from now could decide the outcome of this presidential election.
Yeah.
You hear it more than I do. People want to know more about you and about your specific plans. At the debate the other night, you talked about creating an opportunity economy. I wonder if we can drill down on that a little bit. When we talk about bringing down prices and making life more affordable for people, what are 1 or 2 specific things you have in mind for that?
Well, I'll start with this. I grew up a middle-class kid. My mother raised my sister and me. She worked very hard. She was able to finally save up enough money to buy our first house when I was a teenager.
Okay, now wait a second here, because that wasn't the question. The question was, what are you going to do about the economy? I grew up in a middle-class family. This was the same exact answer she gave during the debate, and the debate moderators didn't push back, and this guy doesn't really push back. She goes on and on and on about how she grew up in a middle-class family with no details about how she's going to get the economy back on track. She totally dodges the question.
I grew up in a community of hardworking people, you know, construction workers and nurses and teachers, and I try to explain to some people who may not have had the same experience, you know, but a lot of people will relate to this. You know, I grew up in a neighborhood of folks who were very proud of their lawn, you know, and I was raised to believe and to know that all people deserve dignity, and that we as Americans have a beautiful character.
You see what she does? It's embarrassing. She's talking a lot about nothing. We know Americans have a beautiful character. We know we love the middle class. We know this country is built on it. What are you doing to fix the economy? Because you had 3.5 years and you all were part of the problem. You and Biden and the rest of the Democrat idiots.
You know, we have ambitions and aspirations and dreams, but not everyone necessarily has access to the resources that can help them fuel those dreams and ambitions. So when I talk about building an opportunity economy, it is very much with the mind of investing in the ambitions and aspirations and the incredible work ethic of the American people, and creating opportunity for people, for example, to start a small business.
All right, so we're 2 minutes into the question. He has not cut her off, and she still has not given you a plan for all of this, okay? So here she's going to come with her $50,000 tax deduction for small business owners. Listen.
My mother, worked long hours, and our neighbor helped raise us. We used to call her, I still call her, our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small business owners. I learned who they are from my childhood, and she was a community leader. She hired locally. She mentored.
I would love to know what this woman did. She's talked about this woman before. Sounds to me like the woman was her nanny, okay? And we still don't have any details. And again, we're still going. No exact blueprint for a better economy.
Our small businesses are so much a part of the fabric of our communities, not to mention, really, I think, the backbone of America's economy. So my opportunity economy plan includes giving startups a $50,000 tax deduction to start their small business. It used to be $5,000. Nobody can start a small business with $5,000.
It's a deduction. You're not given a check for $50,000. It means if you make $100,000, you can deduct $50,000 and you pay the taxes on the $50,000 that's left over. Giving people a $50,000 tax deduction for a small business may sound great, and in the end, if you're making money, it's great. But you don't get any benefit for it unless you're making money. And how many small business owners is she talking about there that's going to make profit $50,000 the first year? I hope there's a ton. If they did make $50,000 in profit, because don't forget, you can still take your deductions of buying equipment. You can still take deductions for expenses for payroll, for all of these things. Take deductions for your rent, for your electricity, for your utilities, for your buying your product and merchandise. All of that comes off. So if you made a profit, then you can take a deduction of $50,000. But unless you get there, this doesn't help anybody get out of the gate. Doesn't help anybody get out of the gate. Now, I love the idea of a greater tax deduction. Fine. But don't think that you're giving people or putting money in their pocket to start a business. Not that I think that's the right thing either, but she's confusing what a tax credit is. That's when you take a credit. So if I owe you $2,000 and I have a $2,000 tax credit, I could just take the credit. I don't owe the $2,000. Not a deduction off of your income, and then you pay the rest of the tax on that. Maybe she's confusing that. Maybe she's confusing grant money. But this is a tax deduction.
But investing in people's innovative ideas and giving them the ability to go for it. Opportunity economy means, look, we don't have enough housing in America. We have a housing supply shortage. And what that means, in particular for so many younger Americans, the American dream is elusive. It's just actually not attainable. So part of my plan is to work with the private sector and housing developers to give them a tax credit, to be able to partner with us as the government to build, and my goal is 3 million new homes by the end of my first term. In addition, to help people who just want to get their foot in the door, literally. And so giving first-time home buyers a $25,000 down payment assistance to be able to just get in the door, and then they will do the work that they need to do to save and to pay that mortgage and to build wealth for themselves and their family. These are some examples of what I mean when I talk about an opportunity economy, and a lot of it has to do with just the community I was raised in and the people that I admired who work hard, and deserve to have, their dreams fulfilled because they're prepared to work for it.
Folks, do you see what I mean? Nothing. And how long are we in there? That is 4 minutes. A third of this guy's interview, he's asked one question. She runs out the clock on this guy, and we've got nothing except a plan for a $50,000 deduction for small business startups that she doesn't even understand how her own plan works, because Kamala Harris has never been a small business owner. She has never signed the front of checks. She does not understand what it is like to struggle to make payroll, to struggle to make your rent. She doesn't even understand what it's like to have success in a business where you have a business that is making money, how to go about hiring more people, how to go about investing in the growth of your business. So a lot of times we talk about how these politicians don't understand what it's like to be a struggling small business owner. I would also like to tell you a lot of these politicians don't understand what it's like to be a successful small business owner and what we need to be even more successful so we can grow and hire more people. So this opportunity economy she talks about really actually makes a difference.
You talked at the debate and at previous appearances about turning the page on the past. And in fact, here today in Johnstown, you're talking about a new way forward.
You know what's interesting? This guy didn't even follow up. I asked you for 2 examples of how you're going to change the economy. You gave me one, and you talked for 4 minutes about how great America is, and you've literally destroyed it. He doesn't even follow up on that, but let's see where he's going with this.
I think some people have a question, given maybe your current role as Vice President of the United States, how different you are from Joe Biden. And so I wonder if there are 1 or 2 spots, policy areas or approaches where you would say, I'm a different person.
Well, I'm obviously not Joe Biden. And, you know, I offer a new generation of leadership. And so, for example, thinking about developing and creating an opportunity economy where...
Here we go with the opportunity economy. A new generation of leadership. You're 59 years old, so you're not a spring chicken. I'm 55, all right? In most Americans' eyes that are younger, we're old, okay? Now, I don't feel old, thanks to Energized Health, which is a sponsor. We'll get to them in just a little bit. But this is the reality, that she's got nothing. She talks about being a part of the new generation. She has spent 3.5 years in office, playing a large role in the destruction of America, in the rise in inflation that is now through the roof and crippling the American economy and the American workforce and the American family. She has been a huge part of overburdening us with regulations, mandates beyond belief, decreasing the number of drilling permits so we have gas prices that are still through the roof. All of this is on her watch, and don't forget the chaos we're seeing across the globe from the Middle East and Russia and beyond. All of it is on her watch. What is she talking about? A new generation? There is no new generation. You know what? I will take this time, by the way, to tell you about my friends over at Energized Health, by the way, because they are great. And energizedhealth.com/Grant is where I want you to go. I am on the Energized Health program. I have lost 15 pounds. I've steadied out my 15 pounds. I'm hydrated. I want you to look at that. That's 55 years old. I think I look better than most of the people in my high school class. Sorry to my friends in my high school class, but it's true. I'm eating a little bit differently, but I'm really still enjoying most of the same foods I've always enjoyed. I'm not hungry. I'm not killing myself with workouts. There's an intercellular hydration exercise they have. It's one, and it's super easy. You can literally do it while watching TV or on the phone. This program works, and it is about hydration and getting hydrated all the way to the cellular level. If you want to figure out what that means, go to energizedhealth.com/Grant. But I'm down 15 pounds of body fat. My muscle mass is slightly increasing. That never happens when you're on a diet, by the way. You usually lose muscle mass as well. My testosterone levels are up on this program. I don't want to call it a diet. It's a program. Mind, body, soul program. There's videos, there's recipes, there's personal coaching involved. This is great. So go to energizedhealth.com/Grant. Energizedhealth.com/Grant. And take your life back. You got to lose 200 pounds. You want to lose 20 pounds. They can help you, and they are great. I mean it. It's working for me. So pay them a visit. Energizedhealth.com/Grant. All right. Continue, Kamala Harris, please.
It's about investing in areas that really need a lot of work, and maybe focusing on, again, the aspirations and the dreams, but also just recognizing that at this moment in time, some of the stuff we could take for granted years ago, we can't take for granted anymore. For example, another plan that I have that is a new approach is to expand the child tax credit to $6,000 for young families for the first year of their child's life, because that is obviously a very critical stage of development of a child. And a lot of young parents need the help to buy a car seat or a crib or clothes for their kids. And so my approach is about new ideas, new policies that are directed at the current.
Are you bored? Is that called droning on and on and on? Because I'm bored. I can't even pay attention to what she's saying anymore. She loses me in all of it. And this woman wants to be president of the United States. This is an embarrassment. It's word salad. It amounts to a ramble beyond rambles. And the worst part is this so-called journalist who's interviewing her. And I'm sure he's a nice guy. Maybe he's new to this game. But, dude, you need to interrupt and you need to drill down. And you have an opportunity that nobody else had. She wouldn't give it to national media, except for Dana Bash, but she had to have a bodyguard with her with beta male, no balls walls. So this interview is bad news. And it's bad news for Kamala Harris, and it's bad news for the reporter conducting it.
Moment. And also, to be very honest with you, my focus is very much in what we need to do over the next 10, 20 years.
Why wasn't your focus over what to do over the last 3.5 years? Your focus is over 10 years. You screwed it up in 3.5. Why would I want to give you another 10 or 20 years? I wouldn't. I certainly don't want to give you another 4. Oh.
To catch up to the 21st century around, again, capacity, but also challenges.
Crime and public safety are two major issues right at the forefront of voters' minds. In Philadelphia as well, where crime is a significant issue. When we talk about crime, the conversation turns to gun safety as well. And I think you actually probably caught a...
Just the fact that this clown uses the term gun safety means that he has bought literally into the Democrat talking point of gun safety. Don't say gun control. That sounds like it's anti-Second Amendment. Say gun safety because everybody's for that. Well, we are for gun safety, but their gun safety means take guns away from good people.
A lot of people off guard, maybe a bit by surprise in the debate the other night when you mentioned that you are a gun owner. I know you said it in 2019 as well. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about your values on this issue. When it comes to gun ownership, where do you draw the line in America on gun ownership and gun use?
So you shouldn't draw any line on any of it. And I would tell this guy I don't draw a line. The Second Amendment says that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. What line am I supposed to draw? The Founding Fathers didn't draw a line. Let's see if her answer sounds like that. I doubt it.
Well, like you said, Brian, I am a gun owner, and Tim Walz, my running mate, is also a gun owner. We're not taking anybody's guns away. I support the Second Amendment, and I support reasonable gun safety laws.
No such thing. There is no such thing as a reasonable gun safety law. You have to let good people decide what is best for them when it comes to their firearms. How to store them, how to keep them, how to buy them, how to use them. This should be up to the American citizen, not up to some bureaucrat telling me how to be safe or how not to be safe. I want everyone to go get trained in the use of a firearm if you want to. I mean, if you want to have a firearm, I want you to get training, but I'm never going to mandate that.
Part of my approach to this is I was a career prosecutor for most of my career. I have personally prosecuted homicide cases. I have personally looked at autopsies. I have personally seen what assault weapons do to the human body. And so I feel very strongly that it is consistent with the Second Amendment and your right to own a gun to also say we need an assault weapons ban. They're literally tools of war.
So that, folks, is her support of the Second Amendment. A, quote, assault weapons ban. She's going to take the AR-15, which is the most common rifle in use in America today, which the Supreme Court says guns in common use cannot be taken away. There is no doubt that the AR-15 is the most common rifle in America, and yet she wants an assault weapons ban because they're using AR-15s all across America to kill people? No, they're not. Yes, they may be used in school shootings. School shootings are clearly one is too many. But the big problem with America today when it comes to, quote, mass shootings are gang shootings, shootings with illegal guns, criminals who should not have guns and are already barred from having guns. All right? It's not NRA members going into a department store with their AR-15 and shooting up people. And that's the bottom line. Yet they want to make it out like this gun should be villainized and the gun is the problem. It's the human being that is the problem. And it is the common pistol in the hands of a criminal who's not allowed to have it anyway that is wreaking most of the havoc on our inner cities today. And that doesn't mean you ban the pistol. What it means is you enforce the law, go after people who are breaking the law when they have firearms, prohibited possessors. Don't go after legal possessors, go after prohibited possessors.
They were literally designed to kill a lot of human beings quickly. I say we need universal background checks. The majority of NRA members support that.
That is not true. That's an absolute lie. The majority of NRA members do not support that. And I would like to ask you, what major shooting in America would a universal background check have stopped? Not any of these so-called mass random public shootings. Not any of the inner city shootings. Those people are all getting their guns illegally, stealing them, buying them on the black market. And the school shooters and movie theater shooters either took them from their parents or were given them from their parents or had passed a background check and bought them themselves. This is not going to stop anyone from committing crimes.
Why?
But you know what it is going to do, by the way, before I get back to her? Create a giant list of what Americans own firearms. That's their ultimate goal.
It's just reasonable. You just might want to know before someone can buy a lethal weapon if they've been found by a court to be a danger to themselves or others. You just might want to know.
Two final questions, if I might.
Sure.
On the appeal of the man you were running against, as you drove here today, you likely saw a lot of Trump signs. Mm-hmm. He has an historic appeal in this country. And as you are someone running against him and trying to understand that, I wonder how you distill it. What do you understand his appeal to be? And how do you speak to his voters? Or maybe people who just share his values but are open to something else?
I, based on experience and a lived experience, no. In my heart, I know, in my soul, I know that the vast majority of us as Americans have so much more in common than what separates us.
Again, that wasn't the question. I know that we have a lot in common, but I will tell you this, when it comes to Democrats, I'm seeing less and less in common. And our country are now polar opposites. We have one country that believes government knows what's best for us. That's the Kamala Harris faction. And the other part of the country believes we know what's best for us and our families. That's the Make America Great Again faction. But she doesn't understand that. She thinks she knows best. That's why she wants to tell us what to do every step of the way. That's why I will push back every step of the way against her.
And I also believe that I am accurate in knowing that most Americans want a leader who brings us together as Americans and not someone who professes to be a leader who is trying to have us point our fingers at each other. I think people are exhausted with that approach, to be honest with you. I think people want a leader who has common sense and tries to find common ground.
Yes. Yes, President Trump is the common sense candidate. Everything President Trump has offered up has been about common sense. Everything this woman offers up is not common sense. $25,000 handout to first-time home buyers. What do you think will happen? The price of homes in that particular market will go up by $25,000. It is that simple, okay? So it's not going to help anybody. This $50,000 deduction, not going to help anybody. The one idea that's great is no tax on tips. She stole it from President Trump. Child tax credit, increasing it. She stole it from President Trump. You think taking away good people's firearms is common sense? So I use an AR-15 to defend myself in my house, and I have a home invasion, and they got AR-15s, but now I'm going to have to defend my home with what, a .357 revolver? No, thank you. I'd like to be evenly matched. And I'd like to be evenly matched against my government as well, which is why I'm all for people owning cannons and machine guns and bazookas and whatever else you want to own, because if you're a law-abiding citizen, you're not going to use it to kill innocent people. How about that?
I'm supported by over 200 Republicans who worked for both Presidents Bush, John McCain, and Mitt Romney.
Oh God, it's like, does she literally think that's a positive to the people I'm talking about that are longing for freedom? That you've got rhinos that supported Bush, Romney, and McCain. The worst the Republican Party had to offer, okay? That's not a positive, Kamala Harris, which goes to show you this is why you're so out of touch. Now you think Dick Cheney's a hero? Dick Cheney was your enemy number one. But now because he supports you, Dick Cheney's a big hero.
I'm supported by the former Vice President Dick Cheney, former Congress member Liz Cheney. And I think people are more willing now.
Oh, what about Adam Kinzinger? Oh, we really think he's great too. That'll get us all to come over to your way. No, these are people that have spat on the rule of law. These are people that have stomped on the Constitution. No wonder they're on your side.
In light of the hate and division that we see come.
By the way, Dick Cheney's a warmonger. So's Liz Cheney. So are you a warmonger? That's the follow-up question. Why didn't this guy follow it up? Oh, yes, Dick Cheney. You used to call him a warmonger. Are you good with his you want his support? No follow-up. This guy was an ass clown, man. He really was. And I'm sure he's a nice guy. Again, I don't know. But he didn't ask it. This was a horrible interview, and he had a chance to make news, and he didn't do it.
Coming out of Donald Trump to say, hey, let's put country first. And I think that just makes us stronger and more healthy as a country.
Wait a second. You mean like put America first? Did she just say, let's put country first? That's what the whole movement is about. America first. You hijacking that now, too? Maybe President Trump is right. We got to send her a freaking MAGA hat now. America first. You better believe we believe in America first. The problem is for 3.5 years, you put America last, and you put the people in America last for 3.5 years. God, this is frustrating.
To say, look, we can all debate our differences around, various policies, but let's stop with the division. Like, enough of that. Let's bring everybody together.
And finally, as you introduce yourself to America in a new way.
Let's bring everybody together. You literally race bait the entire way. Everything your party does is about race and politics, race and politics, race and politics. Everything. You separate kids from their families. You want to bring people together, yet you've legalized this idea that kids can go have a sex change operation in California and not tell their parents if they live in Texas or New York or someplace else. Travel all the way across country, a minor, to go have a sex change operation and not tell the parents. But you say we want to bring the country together. To me, that's breaking families apart. And everything you have done economically, who knows how many divorces have occurred because of the financial struggles of the American people today, because eggs cost $32 a dozen now.
They've heard much of your story at the Democratic National Convention and in that debate earlier this week. If there's one thing that you wish Americans knew about who Kamala Harris is that you don't think they know yet, what would that be?
I don't know. Probably it's not very different from anybody watching right now. I love my family. One of my favorite things that I lately have not been able to do is Sunday family dinner. I love to cook. I have incredible friends. My best friend from kindergarten is still my best friend.
Oh my God. You're running for president of the United States. We don't care.
I think that, I have a career that really, and I said it the other day, as a career prosecutor, I never asked a victim of crime, were they a Republican or a Democrat. The only thing I ever asked them is, are you okay? And
how dare you? What the Democrats have done is turned their backs on the victims across America. You don't prosecute crime anymore. You've been part of this defund the police movement. You're asking victims if they're okay when you want to defund the very people that are there to protect them, to ensure that they're not victimized again? I don't believe you. I know you were part of the entire Prop 47 movement in California to decriminalize so many important crimes in that state, to cut the punishment for so many crimes in California, sending crime skyrocketing in California. Do not tell me you're a tough prosecutor and you care about victims when all you have done is made life miserable for victims. And by the way, who are the number one victims that you really caused a problem for? How about the family members of those 13 soldiers in Afghanistan that died because of your disastrous withdrawal? Did you ever ask them if they're okay? No. Not one phone call from you or your corpse of a boss, Joe Biden. It's sickening, it's maddening, and it's despicable. How in the world this woman has a chance of becoming president of the United States, I have no idea. But America, we are smarter than this. I will let her finish.
I think that's the approach that most Americans want, regardless of who they voted for in the last election, in terms of turning the page and charting the way forward.
I imagine you're looking forward to cooking Sunday dinner again.
I am looking for it. Yes, I am looking forward to cooking. With the whole family gets involved, the kids each have their role. Yeah.
That's how he ends it? You're looking forward to Sunday dinner. How would he have done this interview with President Trump? I promise you, not the same way as this one. You asked maybe 3 questions in 11 minutes. I would have told her, I need rapid fire answers here. Let's try to drill down into some of these things about policy. But no, we didn't get that at all from them. At all. Which is about as upsetting as it totally gets. Folks, I want to remind you about my friends over at the Wellness Company, twc.health/grant. This is the medical emergency kit that I have. There's 8 prescription medications in here, antibiotics, antivirals, antiparasitics, including ivermectin. Ivermectin still in many parts of the country is very, very hard to get. This is why I have one of these kits on hand. We just saw a cyber hack. Many of the drugstores across the country were closed down. If you needed life-saving medications like this, you would have been out of luck. Along with this kit comes a guidebook that tells you in the safe use of all of these medications, what they're best prescribed for, how to use them, dosages, all of that kind of thing. I don't know of any company that's going to get you the most common, most well-used, used for a necessity medications than the Wellness Company, all at one shot. So I would urge you go to twc.health/grant. Use that promo code GRANT for free activation, for 10% off. twc.health/grant. Use that promo code GRANT for 10% off. So instead of Kamala Harris, what have I told you that President Trump didn't interview? And I find his interview, go figure, far more important than her interview. Now, he was asked about Kamala Harris. Remember, she said, I grew up middle class. I worked at McDonald's. Oh, really? Did you work at McDonald's? Listen to what President Trump has to say.
On the way up, her parents had money. She worked at McDonald's on the way up. And then it was found out she never worked at McDonald's. It was a total lie. That's a big lie. To me, that's a big lie. You know, for a chunk of her life, she had to work at McDonald's over the French fries with the grease and all the fire and flame. I know people that have had that job, and they say it was not a pleasant job, all right? But she said she worked at McDonald's. And unless she can prove differently, which she can't.
We said the same thing. We did it on our show, and we said, listen, if there's anybody, if we're wrong on this and you can prove it, let us know. But the word is now that there's no evidence that she worked at McDonald's. So just give us the evidence, and we still have not heard.
Of course there's no evidence. Kamala Harris didn't work at McDonald's. And I think she did come from a more well-off family than her so-called middle-class upbringing that she claims. The bottom line is, as President Trump pointed out during the debate, that her father was a Marxist professor. They believe in communism. Everything she's talking about, expanding the size of government, would destroy this economy even more. And if you want to filter in more government money into an economy, you're going to send prices of everything skyrocketing. So just how liberal is she? Well, President Trump was asked about that.
They're like progressive, but to me it's liberal. But she is far more liberal than Bernie Sanders or than Pocahontas. I mean, Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, commonly referred to as Pocahontas, is more conservative than this woman that's running for president, who got no votes, who was the first one to lose in the primaries, same primary to Biden. And I guess she had 22 people running. She was the first one to drop out. She never got to Iowa. And she's now running. I don't know. Is she a threat to democracy? You know, they call me a threat. Of course. They call me a threat to democracy. I'm the least threat to democracy.
I promise you, President Trump is literally the least threat to democracy. What President Trump wants is how our government is supposed to operate, a representative democracy. We are a republic. And it will operate like that once President Trump gets back in. Now, this is all contingent on the fact that we take the House and the Senate. In order to turn this country around very quickly, we need to take the House and the Senate. And honestly, we need to take the Senate in a big way, because this 60-vote rule is really very, very difficult, to say the least. Let's go to the accusations that Harris raised about President Trump. President Trump talked about that.
Trump disparages people in the military. And
you made it up. It's a lie.
Yeah, and you point out that you met with the Gold Star families from Afghanistan. And you meet with the people, the people whose families are hurt and killed by these illegal immigrants.
They're liars. You know, when she went over those points, all of those points, like the bloodshed, that was referring to the car industry is going to, you know, or bloodbath, I guess is the word. That was a term I used for the car industry because the United Auto Workers has done a great disservice to their members. I'm going to bring the car industry back into this country. They're going to lose the car industry. It's all going to be gone to China and other countries. And I called it a bloodbath. They made it sound like it's in the middle of the streets and it has nothing to do with cars. I was talking about the car industry and so many other things. Every one of them should have been questioned by David Muir, who I've lost a lot of respect for. Everyone's lost respect for him because it was such a one-sided. It was 1 against 3.
Well, it sure was, Mr. President. And I will tell you this. I did a podcast right after that debate, and I said the architect of that hit job against President Trump was Dana Walden, who is a high-ranking Disney executive who oversees ABC. We then learned that Lindsay Davis, the moderator with Muir, is a, quote, sorority sister. Now, she went to whatever school. I don't even know if it was the same school, but Davis is in her 40s. Kamala Harris is in her late 50s, so they couldn't have gone to school together. But it doesn't even matter. I believe that Kamala Harris had the questions, and there's a lot of belief now that Kamala Harris had the questions. There was talk she was given sample questions. The questions turned out to be the same thing. Talk that there was promises she wouldn't be fact-checked when President Trump would. I think there needs to be an investigation into what happened here. David Muir should be suspended, if not fired, and so should Lindsay Davis. But Muir is really the one who hijacked this whole thing. Now, Davis is the one who fact-checked Kamala on the abortion claim. Now I learned there's 143 babies born alive after a failed abortion attempt they let die on the table. 143. So when she said, oh, this is illegal in every state, don't they? That's absolutely not true. It 100% is not true. They lied about it. They ought to give an apology out about for it. ABC ought to come out and apologize for their debaters, except ABC corporate was in on it too. And we all know it. Anyway, I'm feeling good about President Trump. Just keep it rolling. That latest interview from Kamala Harris, not good. And to review, the state of Texas has a big opportunity in front of them with Twitter now in Texas and subpoena power from entities in Texas, from the Texas State Senate to the Texas Attorney General's office. Let's get to the heart of who was causing all of these problems. That, folks, is going to do it for us. Don't forget my website, GrantStinchfield.com, GrantStinchfield.com. Stinchfield 1776 on just about every social media platform. You guys are the best. We will see you there, and I'll see you on the Real America's Voice show tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Thanks for watching, everybody.